being raised in Frontera Grill and Topolobampo right here in Chicago. She brings a lifetime of hospitality experience to the family business. She has rejoined the Frontera family with the opening of Lina Brava here in Chicago. She's also at the helm as the Spirits Director for Frontera Grill and the Frontera Hospitality Group. Please welcome Lanie Bayless.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out on this lovely Monday. I think a little bit of a gloomy day outside, unfortunately, but so thank you for being in here and spending it with me. So I was going to talk to you guys all about some fun cocktails. Woo! Happy hour! First, a little bit about myself. I am the Spirits Director for Frontera Grill and Frontera Hospitality Group. Been doing this job for about a year now, and I did, as he said, come back into the company to open Lanie Brava, our great restaurant in the West Loop. When I was doing that, I was lucky enough to be able to really work on creating our Mezcal list that we have there, which is huge and great, the biggest in the city, which is great. So if you are interested in tasting Mezcal, definitely come down and see us there. But then while I was doing that, I also really got to develop the cocktail program that we have there. Really loving that, and then having that launch me into this new role where now I am in charge of the cocktail list for all 5 restaurants that we have now, so it's quite a big job, but something that I'm really enjoying doing. So the first thing I wanted to start by telling you guys was just a little bit about what I think your best at-home bar should look like. So if you guys are ready to entertain or just have drinks yourself and your family, here are the tools that I think will really best help you guys to do that. So the first, most important, is going to be your shaker. Obviously, a shaker or stirring tin. That's where you're going to do all of the mixing of all of your ingredients. So there are 2 main kinds of shakers. The first one that looks like this, probably what you guys are more familiar with. It has a little cap and a strainer on the top. This is called a cobbler shaker, and it's really great for if you want to do something really easy, if you're just making one drink at a time, not really trying to go for speed. Now, in restaurants and bars, what we mostly use is a Boston shaker. So this is 2 pieces that you connect together like this, and it seals on the inside, and you shake using this. Now, this one can be a little bit tricky to open. So what you do is you want to get the small tin to hit the outside of the big one by just knocking it against your palm and popping it off. Now, it can be a little hard. It definitely does take some practice, but I assure you guys that you can do it. So the next thing you're going to do is uses your jigger, which is going to be how you measure everything. So most cocktail recipes come in things like 1/2 ounce, 3/4 of an ounce, 1.5 ounces, stuff like those kind of measurements. So a jigger is made exactly for those. The big size, these are both the same size, they're just different styles. The big side on here and here both holds 2 ounces. Though why I really like these long and narrow ones is because it actually has markings on the inside for all of your other measurements. This small side over here is always going to be 1 ounce. Again, on this one, it does have the little markings inside to tell you what are the other measurements are. So those are your strainers, again, very important for measuring. Now, this is your strainer right here. This is another very important piece, especially if you're not going to be using a cobbler shaker like this. This you do when you're done with the drink, and I'll be demonstrating this in a little bit. You put it on top, and then you just pour it through. And what it just does is catch the ice. So it's not going to catch anything that's, if you're using any herbs or any seeds from fruit, if you've been muddling it in there, it's not going to catch that. So when you do have things like that, if you want a perfectly clear drink, that's where this kind of strainer comes in. This is called a tea strainer. Again, most of you may have these at home actually just for using tea, for making tea. So then if you pour using both of these, you'll catch all of the little drips of anything that you may not want. So now we come, so this is sort of what you're going to need every day to make sort of any basic cocktail. Now I do have a couple of other things that are maybe a little bit more advanced tools over here, depending on what you're looking to make. This is a muddler. I sort of mentioned it before. If you do have anything that has fruit in the bottom, like a smash, that's a great time to use a muddler. What you'll do is you'll put fruit in the bottom of your tin, either one of these, and just crush it in there with the bottom of your muddler. It's a very useful tool. The next one here is going to be your bar spoon. So this is going to be if you're going to be making any drinks that are going to be all alcohol-based. So a Manhattan, an old-fashioned, a Negroni, all of those are stirred drinks. So you don't want to shake it, as that will break up the alcohol and water it down a little bit too much for what we normally like. So, but how you stir a cocktail, if you want to look very cool and professional at home like the bartenders that you go see, what you want to do, it's obviously you can just stir it around like this. That's very easy, but unfortunately you're probably going to lose some of the drink. The ice is going to splash around in there and you're going to end up wearing it or losing some of your great product. So what you really want to do is take the back of the spoon and put it against the inside of the tin and make a circle motion where you just are following, sort of outlining the inside of your tin. So that's the most cool and professional way to do your stirring. The last thing is just a Y peeler. Now you can use, they have these, obviously use them for vegetables as well, but this is really, really great for doing any sort of garnish. If you're making a Manhattan or an old-fashioned, you are probably going to want to put some orange garnish in there. So when you're doing so, you start at the top, press your finger lightly on the blade, and you're going to bring it down and rip the peeler out from underneath. You don't want to move the orange, as that sometimes you can hurt yourself if you do that. So you just rip away the peeler and it comes right off, and you've got a really nice strip of orange like this. You can use the oil from the inside. If you just squeeze it, you'll actually get some of the oil from the skin will come off. Smells delicious. So those are sort of the things that you definitely, oh, I actually almost forgot a very crucial tool. This can go in your kitchen or your bar, but for me, I think it's super, super important to have it in the bar because of how important fresh juice is, either lime or lemon, depending on what you're making, or even orange for that matter. So this is really great for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's very easy. So all you do, I have a cut lime right here. I am just going to put it in there and press down. And you really can, if you really can close it all the way, you get all of the juice out of the lime. But what this also does is the same way that I was just able to release the oil from the skin in the orange, this actually released the oil for me by just letting it press down in here. So you're going to get the most fragrant lime juice or lemon juice or any citrus juice by doing it this way. Does anybody have any questions about sort of basic bar tools to start off with? Great. I'm going to move on to our happy hour over here. So the first thing about making a margarita is that a margarita is actually a very traditional cocktail build of a sour. So that is what that means is it's really easy to customize for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of teach you guys 2 basic margarita recipes and then different tips on how you can customize it. So that hopefully when you walk away today, you have some idea of, for the next time you have any guests over, friends or family, how you can make your own signature margarita, show what you like in your cocktails or in your spirits. So when you're working with the basic sour proportions, what you think about is 2 parts of your strong liquor, 1 part of something sweet, and 1 part of something with acid. So in a margarita, what that means is for the strong, you're going to use an agave-based spirit. So that will more than likely be tequila, of course, that we're all very familiar with. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit today about mezcal as well, another agave-based spirit that you can definitely use in your margaritas in order to just give it another depth of flavor, a little bit more interesting stuff going on. The next thing to come out of that is going to be the sweet component, right? So what are we going to use for sweet? There is going to be something you need, a sugar-based thing. So we'll talk about either sweetening your lime juice, agave, or simple syrup. All 3 of those are great things that you can use to make your margarita. The last thing is the acid. Now, of course, that's super, super crucial for us in a margarita, as I said over there, with fresh juice. The fresh juice is really the thing that makes a great, great, great margarita. As much as it can be so much easier to just buy that juice that's in the store, using that presser, it really is very easy, and it makes your end product so much more desirable to your guests or yourself. So in talking about the different kinds of tequila that we have, so tequila, first of all, let me just sort of talk about what it is in general. It does come from an agave plant, similar to a cactus, though it is not in the cactus family. Agave does grow in sort of an arid desert climate. They normally take anywhere from about 6 to 8 years to mature. So once you've gotten your bottle of tequila at home, you know that it's taken at least 6 years at its very least to get to this stage, to get to that bottle. So the next step after that is, of course, that you have to cook your agave hearts in order to get the juice from it. So you cook those in a big oven, just exactly like our sort of convection oven. Steam comes in from all sides to evenly cook the hearts of the plant. Then that gets crushed and fermented, and then in its last step gets distilled. So you can get tequila is made in a bunch of different states in Mexico, 8 to be exact, but it does come from the state of Jalisco in the town of Tequila. So there's actually a town much like Champagne, comes from the Champagne region in France. Tequila actually was created in the town of Tequila. So it's a very fun thing. Now, tequila does come in 4 different major categories, I would say. Your Blanco, which would be an unaged tequila. Your Reposado, that's what this guy is right here. That just means it's been rested, normally up to about a year, no less than 3 months, in some sort of oak barrel. The second to last will be your Añejo. That's rested anywhere from 1 to 3 years. So it's going to take on a lot more barrel notes, giving it a little bit more sweetness and viscosity. And then the last would be the extra añejo. Those are the sort of really big fancy ones that go anywhere above 3 years of aging. Those, again, can be very viscous and rich and creamy. Most people think of the extra añejos as a little bit more of an after-dinner kind of drink. But in the 2 basic margaritas that I'm going to talk to you about making, the first, we are going to use a Blanco tequila. And this particular margarita, the first style that we're going to be making, is going to be much more light, bright, acid forward. For somebody that's looking for something a little bit more tart, maybe think about it in the summertime when the weather is hotter. You do want something that you can down pretty quickly, that's got all that nice acid to it. So starting with that, this is one of the tequilas that we use in Cruz Blanca, one of our great restaurants in the West Loop as well. Casa Noble Añejo, or the Cristal tequila, their Blanco tequila. Now this does come from the state of Jalisco in Mexico, very close to the town of Tequila, and it's really great. They use really great agave, they're also really big on reforestation and replanting of agaves, which is something that's really important in Mexico right now. So I'm going to start with my 2 ounces of my strong spirit, which is the tequila. Now the next thing we're going to do is add the orange liqueur. So that's sort of a level, when we talked about our 3 elements, the orange wasn't really part of that. But because of its inherent orange nature, it is a little bit on the sweeter side. So when we think about our 2 to 1 to 1 proportions, I do include the orange liqueur as part of the sweet components to it. So this particular orange liqueur, Cointreau, very popular one that comes from France, and this is made in a style where they start from just a clear distillate. So it's an unaged distillate that then they add oranges to and turn it into that orange liqueur that way. But having it be unaged means that it's going to be a little bit thinner. It's not going to have a lot of richness to it, like one of the other styles of orange liqueur we'll talk about in a bit. So I'm going to add about a ½ ounce of the Cointreau. So that's, I've used half of my sweet side. And then the other sweet component, you can choose a lot of different things. So here, I really love to use blue agave. So this is a Wholesome Sweeteners blue agave, really, really great. That when you're using all sort of the lighter ingredients, using something for the sugar that has a little bit of richness is just going to help balance it some. So I am going to use that, but the other option would just be a simple syrup in which you take equal parts of boiling water and sugar, stir it around until the sugar dissolves, and then that's what you've got right here. It's just a straight sugar syrup. And I always do mine equal parts sugar and water. So I'm going to do another ½ ounce into this of that agave. And then last, of course, is going to be our fresh lime juice. And again, the most key element to this. So I'm going to add 1 ounce of our fresh lime juice, again, sticking exactly with our proportions of 2 ounces of strong spirit to 1 ounce of sweet to 1 ounce of lime. In go some of the ice cubes. So if you do have guests or yourself, if you like salt, I have set up here a little way that we can add salt to our glasses. Though something I always like to do, if I don't know exactly who is coming or what is happening, I always like to do salt on only half of the rim. That way, if some of your guests do like it, they can have it. If not, they don't need to drink it. And so I will go ahead and do salt on half of the rim here. And always do a little piece of lime on the side. And there is our first very simple acid-forward delicious margarita. This is very similar to the margarita that you can find at Cruz Blanca down in the West Loop if any of you guys are interested in tasting it. Now I'm going to move on to making one that's a little bit richer, rounder, more integrated. Maybe something that you want to sip slowly, nice for the winter time. So for that one, we are going to go with things that maybe have a little bit of age on them. This recipe I'm going to be using is very similar to our Topolo margarita that you can, of course, get at Topolo Bampo as well as Frontera Grill. Find the recipe online. It's a really great recipe to use. So I'm going to start with a reposado tequila. Again, this one's been aged just under 1 year, so it does have a little bit of sweetness from the barrel, but not so much that it's going to overpower our cocktail. The next step is going to be our orange liqueur, just as it was on this side. And for this one, we are going to use a Torres orange. This does come from Spain, and it is a brandy-based orange liqueur. That means that they start with brandy, something that's already been spent some time in an oak barrel. It does have a little bit of richness to it. And then they take that and distill it another time by adding the orange to it to get that flavor. So you are going to get more richness out of this particular orange liqueur than you will out of Cointreau. The way you can always tell the difference between the two, this, if you can see it in here, is a dark brown color, whereas the Cointreau is totally clear. So that's a way to make sure that you're using the kind of orange liqueur that you're interested in. So for the component of the sweet and the acid for this one, I have actually made what we at our restaurants call our limonada, which is our house sort of sweet and sour mix, if you can call it that. We take fresh lime juice, we just add a little bit of sugar in it to sweeten it, and then dilute it with some water. It does taste great to drink on its own, just like lemonade, but we do use it as our sort of sweet and sour mix base for our cocktails. So while I am going to shake this drink up, Lisa will help me by rimming one of these margarita glasses for us. So when I am shaking, I am looking to do two main things. Thank you. The first one is to chill the drink. So all the ingredients did go in warm, so if you weren't to shake it, it would just be a warm drink. Wouldn't necessarily be the most delicious or enticing. So we do shake to chill the drink, but also the ice itself breaks up inside the shaker and gives it a little bit of dilution. So there's some water that goes in from the ice, and that's really important when you have all of these really strong, rich flavors that you're trying to get to balance together and make one cohesive drink. So when you do that, you want to think about, if you're using one of the Boston shakers, hitting the ice on all four corners of your tin. So when I think about it, I think about shaking in a circular motion. And that way you can hear all of that ice breaking up. so here we have our Topolo Margarita made with the Reposado tequila in a brandy-based orange liqueur, a little bit richer, slower sipper than that first one that we had made. So now I'm going to move on to talking about a couple different ways that you can make variations on your margaritas. So I did talk a little bit about Mezcal being another kind of agave spirit that you can use in your margaritas. So Mezcal is very similar to tequila in that process that I was saying. It does come from an agave plant. It comes from a different kind of agave. Also, instead of coming from Jalisco in Mexico, Mezcal, for the most part, comes from Oaxaca, another state sort of to the southern part of Mexico. And Mezcal, unlike tequila, really varies in large amounts based on the kind of agave that they're using. So there are many different kinds of agave that you can use while making Mezcal, and only one kind of agave, the blue agave, that you can use for making tequila. So that right there makes these two spirits very different in a way, even though they do come from the same plant. There are many different mezcals right now on the market, and I hope some of you have been in the many mezcal bars that are opening our city right now trying them. But I did pick two that I really love here. This Mezcal Union that comes, it's a great group of two different guys that come from Mexico City that found a great family in Oaxaca that they are close with, and they use their products here. Really delicious, but this is a lighter style. It's going to be really clean. It's got a lot of minerality in it. And so this we're going to use in the exact same way that I would use this Blanco tequila. So in that lighter, more acid-forward margarita. The other mezcal that I brought is Montelobos. This is, again, comes from that state of Oaxaca in Mexico, but this is made in a much smokier style. Now, when people hear mezcal, a lot of people think smoky. Is that what you folks think here? So mezcal can be very smoky because when they cook the heart of the agave plant, they actually put it in live fire. So they put it in a big fire pit, and that is how it is cooked. So that is where the smoke comes from. But some producers like more smoke than others, so they really embrace that. This particular producer really loves that smoky quality to the mezcal, so they really embrace it. Therefore, I would suggest to put it in with this brandy style of orange liqueur to make something a little bit richer that way. The other fun things that I have brought here to sort of help us customize our margaritas are this right here is some fresh cucumber puree. Now, all we did was put cucumbers in a blender. The high water content of cucumbers gives us this great consistency of something that really integrates well into a cocktail. So adding just a little bit of this, which I will do again to this lighter style, is going to make it a fruity margarita, maybe something you would love to drink on your patio or in your backyard for the summer. Now, if you're thinking about something a little bit more complex, rich, or perhaps spicy, if you're a fan of spiciness, this I have brought right here is a pasilla chili syrup. So it's a simple syrup made exactly the same way, equal parts of sugar and boiling water. But then I just tore up some dried chilies, left seeds, veins, everything, and just let it sort of steep like you would tea in the boiling hot simple syrup. I let it steep about 5 hours, so it does take some time. But what you get is a really nice chili-forward syrup there. So I would suggest, again, that to go with maybe our little bit richer style of thing. So what I'm going to do now is with these mezcals and the syrup, as well as puree that I have brought, I'm going to make two variations on the margarita. The first one, I'm going to use our richer style of margarita, and I will make it with mezcal. So I put the same amount of mezcal that we've been using, about 2 ounces. Then I'm going to put a half an ounce, just half of that amount of the sweetness of the pasilla chili syrup. Again, another half ounce of our sweeter brandy style orange liqueur. The one of those you may be familiar with that you buy on the shelves is going to be Grand Marnier. These two are very similar in style. And then we are going to finish it off with a little bit of lime juice. Will you rim another glass for me with the chili salt? Thank you. And so Lisa over here is helping me by, again, rimming our glass. But what we've done is we have taken some ancho chili powder, mixed it with salt, and it's just a different kind of salt rim. So you do see that pretty color, those little flecks of the red chili in the salt. And now I'm serving all of these particular ones here. Thank you. Up in our margarita glasses. Again, this is preference. A lot of people, and I'm going to make that last one with the cucumber on the rocks. Now, the reason I may do that is because when you've got a little bit of a thicker puree, it is nice to have those rocks in there, the ice cubes in there to melt it down and make it that really nice drink consistency. But for the most part, I really do love to serve my margaritas up, shaken in a margarita glass. So now this is going to be our spicy mezcal margarita with an ancho chili salt rim and pasilla chili syrup. And last but not least, I'm going to make that refreshing cucumber margarita, in which I will take exactly the same recipe that I did before over here, but I'm going to again use mezcal this time. So I'm going to be using this lighter style of mezcal, union. And then I am just going to, instead of keeping with our traditional proportions of that 2 parts to 1 part to 1 part, I am just going to add an additional ounce of this cucumber puree into here, just for that flavor. So it may go away a little bit from our original recipe or our original proportions, but it's going to be worth it in the end. So we did the cucumber puree, the lime juice, and now we're going back to our Cointreau, our clear style of orange liqueur. And this time, just to change it up a little bit, I'm going to use simple syrup. With the cucumber puree, it does add a little bit of sweetness to it, so not looking for something as sweet as that agave syrup. Even you can tell by the color how dark this is compared to how light the simple syrup is, that is also going to match in the flavor of it. So like I said, I'm going to serve this particular one on the rocks, just so that it can break down that puree a little bit and make it a nice, easy drinkable consistency. That cucumber, of course, gives some added refreshingness too, so it's going to be quite easy to drink. I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. And personally, I really like having a little bit of that texture of the cucumber in the drink. So I am not going to put it again through our fine tea strainer that we have over here, but that's a personal preference. If you're somebody that doesn't like a lot of pulp or pith in your drink, I would suggest, if you're using a puree, to go ahead and strain it through that tea strainer just to give it a finer texture. So there we have our delicious and refreshing summertime cucumber margarita with some union mezcal. And that's all I have for you guys. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Wait.
What if you want to make 2 or 3 drinks? Can you just double up your...
Absolutely. That's what, for those of us that work in a bar or a restaurant, when we get a ticket for a lot of different of the same cocktail, you can put, that's what's great about these large Boston shakers, is you can fill it probably about here with liquid and you will be okay. It will still seal up. So then just double everything or triple everything, and that's a really easy way to make more than 1 drink. It can be a little bit harder in these cobbler shakers because they're just not quite as big. Maximum sort of about 2 drinks in this guy. Yeah?
Could you shake it in glass containers? Or?
You can. A lot of people, since this is the same shape as a pint glass, you can actually get away with putting 2 pint glasses together like this and creating a seal. You do always want to make sure you hear a suction You can hear them when they seal together, and then just shake it back and forth with your 2 pint glasses. Absolutely. Or if you just want to make it really easy, just dumping it back and forth like this. It's a little bit more time consuming and can be a little bit messy, but it shakes and combines all of your ingredients and chills the drink and gives it its dilution. All of those same elements we're looking for when we shake. Yeah.
What are some good qualities to look for in a mezcal?
So it was a great question. Good qualities to look for in mezcal. I mean, I think it depends on what you're looking for. I brought these 2 because I think that they're both really approachable. First of all, you can buy them at Binny's or anywhere like that. Sometimes mezcal can be hard to find. It's a little bit newer to our market. But personally, when I look for mezcal, I like to look at the bottle, because a lot of mezcal companies have gotten into the habit of putting a lot of information about where their mezcal comes from, who the family is that makes it, how they make it, the process, actually on the bottle itself. So I always like to see this itself is hand labeled, hand dated, the number of bottle out of how many they made in this one production of it. Actually, both of these bottles have that. So that's one of the things that I would go and look for first, is just to take a look at the bottle and make sure that they're taking, because that just shows pride in what they're doing. It shows pride that they know who they're going, they know what their suppliers are and stuff like that. But personally, I'm not a huge big smoky fan, so I always tend to go towards the lighter style of mezcal. Which again would be something like this, or if you've ever had Del Maguey, that's one of the most famous mezcals. They were the first to bring into the United States. They have one called Vida. That's their sort of entry-level mezcal. That is a really great product as well, not on the smoky side, but still has enough complexity to stand up in a cocktail. And that's what I think is the most important part. If you think about all of the other elements that we put into our drinks here, you really want to be able to taste this work. You know, that's 8 years in the making, that bottle. And so I think having one that has enough flavor to stand out is really important too.
You find that the longer time makes it a better product?
A lot of times, yes, because the long time mostly comes from how long they're letting that agave stay in the ground and mature. And if they can keep it there longer, they will, and it just grows more, it has more sugar in it. And that sugar is what turns into alcohol, then we love it. So that is, yeah. Any other questions?
This was just a comment. You're the same little girl that was on the show, right?
Yeah.
No, I have to compliment you because you're so straightforward. And I go to Oaxaca a lot. I go to Puerto Escondido.
Yeah.
So you've really made it simplified for the person who really doesn't venture down there to understand mezcal.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
Very straightforward. It was a very good presentation.
Thank you.
I just can't believe you're that same.
I've been doing this quite a long time, I will say. Yeah.
One more thing you had mentioned, the simple syrup.
Yes.
Also, maybe using orange as the citrus will help mellow some of that aftertaste that you can get. We've all had a margarita that was too acidy.
Yes.
And so the simple syrup will take care of that. And I have found orange is excellent. If
Yeah.
you're making that at home or whatever, it can smooth out, back to your smoky, it can smooth out some of the tequilas to really give you something personally you enjoy.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Any other?
What did you use to wet the glass before you put the salt on it?
So this is something that comes, I mean, you can get these for restaurants, of course it is, or you can get them for your home too. This has a sponge in it, and we pour lime juice, just a little bit of the lime juice that I had on here just to wet the sponge. But it's also great use if you have half a lime sitting around. You can accomplish the same thing just by rubbing the lime on the outside of it, or on the top if you want to go all the way around, and then just dunking it in there. I always like to shake it off just to get all the excess salt out of the bottom, because sometimes the salt can fall in there and give you a real salty margarita. Great. Is there any other questions? Great. Well, thank you folks for spending your Monday afternoon with me. This was very fun, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Lanie Bayless, everyone. And of course, all the fantastic Frontera Grill and Frontera Grill hospitality restaurants right here in Chicago. Lena Brava.